Welcome to episode 3 of the Utah Built podcast. I am Jared Banks alongside Kimball Kjar, president and founder of the Utah Warriors. Thanks, Kimball, for being here.
Yeah, good to be here again.
This has been a lot of fun. Please check out Utah Built wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and follow on Instagram, Facebook, and more. If you missed episode 2, we had the president of the Real Salt Lake Soccer Club on with us, John Kimball. You can check out that and all of the other past episodes. Joining us today, the president of the Utah Jazz and really a quiet homegrown hero, Mr. Jim Olson. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm not so sure about the introduction of a quiet hero, but no, I'm doing well today.
Well, really, that's what it is, though, because with an iconic brand, especially here in Utah, like the Utah Jazz, you started literally in like the ticket window at the old Delta Center back in the day, and then I worked yourself into this position, dare I say quietly, without a whole lot of fanfare.
Well, I was really fortunate. I always wanted to work in sports, and we'll probably talk a little bit about that, but was willing to take whatever job I could get to, get my foot in the door. And it's fair to say I started at the ground level, and I've been very fortunate.
Or at the underground level, if anybody anybody ever went to the old will call, literally in the basement, right?
We were in the basement and didn't have windows looking outside, but it was a great opportunity, and like I said, got my foot in the door, and it's been a lot of fun.
So tell us what it was like. Who was Jim Olson growing up? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What are some of the things that you loved about being a kid here in Utah?
Well, yeah, I loved everything about being a kid in Utah. I'm Salt Lake native. Went to Highland High School, so I lived kind of in that general area. Grew up close to Sugar House Park. Played a lot of Little League baseball there, Little League football. Avid skier. Started skiing at a very young age. About when I could start walking, I think is when I started skiing, and just had a wonderful childhood growing up in that neighborhood and having the opportunities, like I said, to ski and do some other things. It was fun. It may be in a negative sort of way. I didn't realize the world existed outside of our little neighborhood and our bubble, and as you get older, you start learning those lessons and picking up on things. But I couldn't have had a better place to grow up, and from a very early age till still, I love Utah and everything about it.
And what were some of those things that expanded your perspective, though? Because you went to school and got your MBA and some of the other things. What were some of the things that you did to kind of get outside of that a little bit?
Yeah, it was probably, three things. You get into high school, and I always considered it, I was really fortunate, going to Highland High School. Highland covered a wide range of Salt Lake City, and there were kids like me going to Highland. There were kids coming from completely different backgrounds, and I was really fortunate through athletics and just maybe even a few other things in high school to start seeing that not everybody grew up like I did, and I gained an early appreciation for that. And some of the things I was probably blessed with that maybe other people didn't have certain opportunities, and I saw that. And then I went to the University of Utah, and that expanded even more. I made a concerted effort at the University of Utah to branch out beyond just the rest of the commuters that were going to the U from our neighborhoods and neighborhoods around us, and just gained and met some incredible friends that are still lifelong friends that were from out of state and from different, actually even from out of the country, and once again that widened things even more. And then I went to graduate school in Boston at Northeastern University, and that was that really opened up my eyes.
What a cultural shift that was.
Yeah,
huh?
I mean, Northeastern, if not many people probably know, but it's in the city. It's not out in the suburbs, and it's in the city. And going to Northeastern was a great experience living back in Boston. But being a Utah guy, I finished school and worked my way back here.
Did you always know that it was going to be sports? Is that something that you like as you went through school and you thought, what do I want to be when I grow up? Was it always sports for you?
Yeah, it was. One is I, like probably most other kids, wanted to play sports as long as I could, and wasn't blessed with the abilities to play past high school, and so that didn't happen. But when I was a young teenager, my uncle was the ticket manager up at the University of Utah, and I started working for him, working at the football games and the basketball games, and just was around sports, even beyond just playing sports, and so worked ticket office, worked in sports information. When I got to the University of Utah, I just stayed in the athletic department, part-time student work type stuff, but it's what I did, and it was awesome, and I never knew anything different. And so I mentioned I went back to Northeastern University to go to graduate school, and it was a master's program in sports management. And so from a young teenager to working in the ticket office at the University of Utah to going to Northeastern to coming back to Utah and getting a job with the Jazz, it's really all I've ever known. My wife tells me all the time, one of these days I have to grow up and go find a real job. And I'm just putting that off as long as I can.
I've said this before, that the key in life is to die young, as old as possible, right?
There you go.
That's what we're looking for.
I agree.
And that's interesting that you point that out, Jim, because you've obviously seen a number of different organizations. Obviously, the University of Utah, back when Rice Eccles had the wood plank benches where we get slippers on, and now that you've gone with the Jazz and the different iterations of the Jazz under different ownership groups, and tell us a little bit about some of the stories or that journey, some of the highlights.
Highlights, journey stories. I mean, you mentioned the University of Utah. I mean, I mentioned I was working in the ticket office. I mean, this was before computers, and all the tickets are pre-printed, and there's the ticket wall with the little slats, and you have the actual hard tickets up on the wall, and there aren't phone cells, internet cells, whatever, people walking up to the window, and they tell you what price. You got to go to the wall and pull out their ticket, and they don't like those, so go back to the wall, find another ticket, and just you think about where it was. This is back in the, we'll call it the late 70s, early 80s, and now it's evolved. Everything's on your mobile phone, and just the technology behind it, and just simply how ticketing. My first job with the Jazz was actually running. We called it the phone room. We started phone ticket sales, actually calling up on the phone and buying tickets, and this was revolutionary. It's like, I mean, that stuff's dead now, and so it's been really fun to watch the evolution of the sports business. I think about, and I want to be careful because I don't want to give a wrong number out there, but I think when I was first hired with the Jazz back in, was it 94, I don't know, did we have 50, 60 employees? Now we're at 400. And it's just, this has evolved into real business and technology and data driven, and it's just been fun to just see everything evolve.
What's something from those early days of the Jazz that people might not have seen or heard? Because when you have a small organization like that and everybody knows everybody, you're working so closely with everybody, what's a key moment or a funny moment from those early days that you could tell us about, like a peek into the past for the history of the Utah Jazz? Maybe it's players or ownership, something that you remember fondly from those early days.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, but it's one of my favorite funny stories and the reason why I want to share it is it's a lesson I learned very early on that has stuck with me through my entire career, maybe sometimes better than others, but I was relatively new with the Jazz, and businesses, corporations hold their golf tournaments, and we were holding our golf tournament. I think it was my second year with the Jazz, so I was still new and I was young, and we go to play up at Wasatch in our golf tournament, and I get put in the foursome with Frank Layden. And everyone knows Frank, and Frank's just one of the greatest guys of all time, and
just a bit of a personality.
Just a bit of a personality, and I played golf. I could play a little bit, and so I was excited. But I was with Frank. I'm new, and so I stand up there on the first tee, and I just shank my drive. And being young and insecure, and then whatever, I kind of slam my club down on the ground and maybe said a word or two or something, and Frank comes and puts his arm around me and says, Jim, you're not good enough to get mad. and the reason why I share that is, one, it's Frank, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a funny story, but two, like, I've actually tried to apply that to my career in how I approach things. Now, I'm not saying I live up to it all the time. We get mad, we get frustrated, and probably don't handle things the way I want to. But you know what? It's like, I think what Frank was saying is like, we're all just here trying to do the best we can and have a little fun along the way, and don't let getting mad getting in the way of it. And I've thought about that in so many scenarios throughout my life and throughout my career, and it was good advice on the golf course, and it's good advice in life.
That's true, because in human relationships, right, when we get flustered, we get angry, it ends up changing the way that we interface with people, right?
It does.
That's such a huge tried and true lesson.
And you can't take that stuff back. You mistreat someone, and I'm guilty. I don't want to make it sound like I've never, I'm guilty of that, but you can't take it back. And it, some repair work, and it takes some time. And so, you just try to, you just try to do the best you can and be a good person.
So aside from that, patience, we can call it. What else has been, central to? I mean, you've been with the Jazz for so long, and you've seen so much. What's kind of been at the core of your success with the organization?
Well, I'll tell you, the core of my success has been good luck and good people around me. I mean, really, I look at the people in the real early years, Jay Francis, who hired me, and working around, the team back then, and Tim Howells was the president, and then when Denny Haslam came in, and Denny was a real mentor, and I've just been around incredible people, people that cared about me and were willing to invest and take a chance on me, and it sounds funny, but a little bit of luck, there's a little bit of luck involved, and good timing, timing at the right time, and it's not me. I mean, I'm just a kid from Salt Lake that wasn't good enough to play professional baseball, and
don't sell yourself short. The saying goes, good luck looks a lot like hard work to people that know what they're doing.
I do try to work hard. I always did, and I like working. Just an example, and once again, not right or wrong, but like when COVID hit and everyone had to work from home, like I couldn't do it. I had to come to the office, and that was for me. I respect and appreciate that other people had to stay home and work from home, and I had the fortunate situation of having an office where I can close a door. But if you're in a cubicle, and so I want to be careful. But I think I was at home for 1 or 2 days, and this does not work. I need to go to work, go to the office, be engaged, and so there's a little bit of that in my DNA, but. For the most part, I've just been around great people.
When you talk about going and being engaged, I know that's been one of the emphasis under your leadership is the engagement of the fans and reinvesting in our community and the people here. How big a difference has that made, and what's the feedback that you've gotten? Because I've been able to experience it taking my youngest son to his first Jazz game, and he was blown away by the entire process. What are some things that you've done to really reach out to fans and make that a big focus under your leadership?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. In case you haven't noticed, I probably can't dunk a basketball. I know that maybe surprises you a little bit, but I can't control wins and losses, but what we can control as an organization is the arena clean? Is it safe? Is the food good? What's the experience coming through and scanning your tickets? And if you don't know where you're going, someone helping you get to your seats, and then outside of the game, is the music good? The lights, the jazz dancers, Jazz Bear, and we can control that stuff. And so we've just made a real concerted effort on investing into that fan experience, and to do it you've got to have the data, and we've invested heavily in our data and collecting data so that we can make better decisions, and try to be pretty transparent with our fans that if they don't like something, okay, we're committed. Let's figure it out. So we listen. And we try to find solutions.
Well, and that's the nice thing about the way that professional sports is these days, is that you have the opportunity to be able to interface with fans in a much more analytical and data-driven way. You have a lot more information, whereas before it was maybe when someone called in on the telephone line. The old school smile and dial stuff, but it's impressive. But one thing I'm kind of curious about, largely because I'm a Utah kid too, and I grew up doing junior jazz. And I think anybody that's a jazz fan has a connection with junior jazz.
Sure.
I would dare say that even Ryan played
He
junior
did.
jazz,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And just that connectivity to. Now, I was doing junior jazz when actually John Stockton, Karl Malone, those guys were actually coming out, Thurl Bailey, coming out to the actual camps and the clinics and stuff. And things have changed, obviously, which the way that the NBA has gone. But tell us a little bit about how you guys see that element of fan, dare I say, aggregation at that youth level and what that means to the brand now that we're almost coming up on 40, 45 plus years of junior jazz being kind of a hallmark and the trendsetter here within Utah.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up because, the junior jazz organization and experience and what it provides for our kids, I mean, there's nothing like it in the rest of the NBA. I mean, we're 60,000 kids every year having a jazz experience, putting on a jazz uniform, jazz logo, and having clinics and camps and and learning to play the game of basketball, and it's an investment for us. We invest into that junior jazz program to make sure that these kids have that experience and they all have an opportunity to come to a jazz game. And not everybody growing up can have that experience, to buy tickets and come to a game. And if you're in junior jazz, you get to come. And so we made that commitment. And I look back at junior jazz was around before I started with the Jazz, but I had the opportunity at a part of my career to oversee that operation and the passion that our team has about making sure junior jazz can influence for the better, and it's more than just basketball. The kids in this community, it's a real passion, and like I said, there's nothing else like it in the rest of the NBA. We get calls every year from other NBA teams. Hey, tell me about your junior jazz program. We want to do it. And we tell them everything. We don't care if they do it in other markets. It doesn't compete against us. And and they just don't get it done. And the fact that it's a great Utah story, right? Yeah. And it's because of the people of Utah. It's the rec centers, the leaders in the community and the rec centers that spend their time and efforts, the coaches, and it's just one of the greatest stories in the NBA.
Well, and that really kind of speaks to what we've seen with sports, right? Is what the power of sports can do for communities. Yeah. And as we talked about that with John in the last episode, with what he saw not only with the Jazz but also his early days with Real Salt Lake, now back with Real Salt Lake. But that junior jazz ecosystem. It's a part of the community and the fabric. It's as much Utah built as anything else.
Yeah, we hope so. And like I said, we're committed to it. The kids in this community. When I say this community, I mean the state of Utah. I mean and actually, quite frankly, I know it's Utah, but we go into Wyoming and Idaho, and if you're in driving range of us, we'll put up a program for you.
Well, and as a dad though too, because I didn't grow up here, but I'm raising my kids here, thankfully. For my kids to be able to play in that program, and as a dad, I see how much a business and a brand, a billion-dollar corporate, internationally known brand, cares about my kid.
Yeah.
That when my 9-year-old walks through the door, he's greeted by someone with a smile. He's got his jersey. He's got his team. He sees his heroes. He gets a pair of sneakers, all of these different things that he does. It makes me feel like I am part of a bigger organization. I think you guys do such a good job of that, and every other team in the NBA should be calling you to figure out what that blueprint is.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll just share, one of our values of our organization is community obsessed. And yes, we have to run a business and we want to win every basketball game that we play, but one of our values is community obsessed, and we make an effort to be obsessed with how we can be, a positive force in this community.
It's been a positive force in my house. So
good.
Thank
good.
you
I'm
for
glad
that.
To hear that. Yeah, glad to hear that.
So what's something for you that has held true beyond the you're not good enough to be that angry? What's a principle for you that you've been able to stand on that's been true for you no matter what position you're in, whether it's the guys selling tickets or now being part of the major decision-making process? What's something that you're proud to have known and shared to pass on?
Yeah, I think two things come to mind, and one is really, a principle that you're asking, and that's integrity. I just never want to be accused of not living up to my word and being a man of my word, and I represent the organization. All of our employees represent the organization, and it's important that we do so, that we're honest and we're straightforward, and I've tried to live by that, and I think it's important that we all do. And so when you talk about it from a principle standpoint, there's that. The other thing that, once again, if I go way back when, I mentioned earlier that Jay Francis hired me, and I remember early on, I can't even remember what it was, but there was something that was frustrating me with what was going on, and I walked into Jay's office and, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I kind of unloaded whatever my frustration was, and I remember I'm standing at his desk and he's sitting down looking up at me, and I got done and he just looked up at me and said, "Do you feel better?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Okay." And I just turned around and walked out of his office. And but what I processed after that was, my job wasn't to go into Jay's office and express frustration. My job was going to Jay's office and have a solution for my frustration, which I did, in that time I didn't have. And so I think, being a problem solver, coming with answers, coming with solutions. Anybody can come with problems, and we all have to vent. We all have to get it out a little bit. That's fine. You don't make it personal, or you try not to, but you get it out. But I walked out of there and thought that conversation would have been a lot better if I would have come with a solution. So I've tried to be someone who brings solutions to problems.
Yeah, that's a big, important deal, especially in business. We can all come up with issues. They're around us every day.
Every day. Yeah.
So here's the question then, that all Jazz fans that have lived through the push-off, that have lived through the Last Dance, and the recollection of all of the pains that we went through in the mid-'90s, what do we got to do to bring a championship here to the Utah Jazz?
Well, listen,
if he had the answer, we'd have a couple of championships already.
I mean, speaking of solutions.
Yeah. Let's bring
you're supposed to bring the solutions to it. That was the point.
I mean, what you got to do is it's about the players, and we've, I was here when the 2 years that we went to the finals, and when you got Stock and Malone and Jeff, and you had the right players, and it's cyclical, but teams build up, and you have that window, and we made we had some great teams with Donovan and Rudy, and 1 year we had the best record in the NBA, but everything has to come together. You got to be healthy. The team's got to be gelling at the right time, playing their best basketball. I mean, look at Miami right now, a number 8 seed in the NBA Finals. I mean, that's incredible, right?
2 play-in games, beating 2 number 1 seeds.
And they just came together. They had injuries early on, so their record, probably was a little worse than they should have been. But it's a combination of great players, good timing, maybe a little bit of luck on your side. But maybe the better answer is you've got to build the culture behind the scenes. You've heard a lot about Miami's culture through this run that they just had in the playoffs, and you got to build that culture. And listen, it starts with Ryan Smith and him bringing Danny Ainge in, and I will tell you that culture is being built here with the Utah Jazz right now, to where we will have that foundation of a culture to make sure we're bringing in the right players and we have the right coach, and then it starts with like I said, ownership, and then we're building for that championship. And I'll tell you, there's no question in my mind the Utah Jazz are going to win a championship.
Well, not 20 feet literally from where we're sitting right now. Like, the NBA Finals are being played, and these guys are already out here working and hustling, and not just going through the motions. These guys are putting in work outside right now to build for the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I rolled in early this morning, and we had our players were in here already working out, and they're still going. I mean, I don't know if the mics can, but we hear whistles out there, and they're going hard. They're working hard, and the whole organization is committed to the effort it's going to take to win a championship.
Well, I think we all look forward to that day where the ticker tape parade of State Street or wherever, when that trophy finally comes to Utah.
We're going to get there.
So I came back to America, to Utah, during those NBA Finals. The first year was '98, and was serving as an LDS missionary, and we were told specifically, don't go knock doors. Don't go talk to people.
Yeah.
Find somebody's house and go sit down and watch these games. So then I became a fan of the organization then, and then to go through a little bit of a lull. Then we came back up with the Darren Williams Boozer days, the AK-47 days, and then, the Gobert Mitchell days, and now with incredible finds like Markkanen.
Yeah.
What is something that goes on behind the scenes with this organization? We talk about teams on the court.
Yeah.
Talk about the importance of your team off the court and how, we alluded to it with culture. How big a difference does that make to surround yourself with people? You and I have had this conversation, Kimball. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
that's for sure.
Talk about some of those other people around you and how important it's been to build that circle.
Yeah. I'm going to answer that, but you said something. I got to share this quick story, so sorry to go sideways, but I will come back to your question. You talked about not knocking doors during the NBA Finals and stuff. I remember hearing after the finals runs, those 2 runs from Salt Lake City Police Department, there was literally no crime the nights of our final games.
It was incredible, wasn't it?
No crime. Like, it didn't matter who you were, everyone was focused on those finals, and like they were just like, we weren't getting any calls, So that talks about the impact that had on the community,
the
right?
culture and the connection of the team to the people.
It was awesome. So sorry, I just when you talked about not knocking doors, like there were a lot of other things not happening either, and everyone's just focused on the Jazz. But back to your question about behind the scenes. I mean, here's listen. We've got an incredible basketball operations, like I mentioned. Ryan brought in Danny and Justin Zanuck, our general manager, and Will is just already proven to be a great coach, and like there's no question we got the right guys there. So my job is to make sure I don't create any distractions. That all they have to worry about is basketball. They can't be worried about are things going to be set up right? Are things going to be ready for us for practice or ready for game? And is the game environment going to be right? And so it is. It's behind those behind the scenes, and the communication stories. The tickets are sold. Sponsorships are all in place. The arena is operating and at the right temperature, and lights are right, and cameras and TV and broadcast, and just all that stuff has to run so perfectly that these guys
they don't even notice
they don't even notice it. They don't have to worry about it. And so, the behind the scenes is to make sure they can win games.
All the hard work that goes into it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me flip this then and ask you a 2-part question.
Okay.
What's something that you're glad you didn't know when you started out that would be an incredible obstacle? And what's something that has been consistent through the whole process from your time in your and that would reign true for anybody, not just with your time with the Jazz?
The first part, what I'm glad I didn't know, I'm glad I didn't know the challenges. I'm glad I didn't know the hard times. I'm glad I didn't know the difficult things that we would deal with and that we would face. I hope this is taken in the right spirit of things, but I think it might be a little glamorous, pretty cool working for the Utah Jazz, and don't get me wrong, it is, but it's hard. It is super, super hard. Every day we're facing new challenges,
and you're under the microscope. Everybody's watching.
And that's a good point. I mean, and so, I think at a younger age, if I would have known some of the things that were going to smack us in the face or punch us in the gut, I might have said, hey, I'm going to go try something else.
So what was do you remember the hardest moment for you personally?
Oh boy.
Where you thought about, maybe I should make a left turn and do something
else.
But you're glad you stuck it out.
It's probably right now working on our new broadcast deal.
It's always the next one in front of you, right?
It is, right? No, I mean, it really, really is. And listen, numerous times where you just you lose sleep at night. You don't sleep at night. The anxiety level gets pretty high, and it's hard, but everything's hard, and that's what has gotten me through it. Is I don't all my buddies going to other jobs or what they're doing, everything's hard, and so it's probably good for all of us, no matter what job, what profession. It's probably good you don't know what's around the corner because it's tough. And so I think once again, to your point, I'm just glad I didn't know all the things that were gonna we're going to get in the way of just being just a fun ride, right? And it's been a fun ride, don't get me wrong, but it's probably been fun because it has been hard and we've accomplished some things and got some things done. And so what was the second part of the question?
So what didn't you know and what did you wish you knew before?
You know what I wish I knew before? When I was young and first started with the Jazz, I think a lot of people. I mean, you're a pretty hard charger. You just want to go. You want to, and I wasn't going to get the next promotion or to get the next pay raise. I was never driven by any of that stuff. I was just driven by. I just wanted to be good. I wanted to be great. I wanted to do the best I could, and so I was a hard charger, and I think to the point where maybe I forgot that people are more important, that it's about the people. And I wish, going back, and I still make mistakes. I'm not saying I figured it all out, but I have such a huge appreciation for the people and what they mean, not only to our organization, but what they mean to me personally. And when I was young and in my career, I'm selling tickets. I just came in every day saying I'm going to sell more tickets than anybody else has ever sold, and just so I could say I did, And I think I let that get in the way of relationships, and I let that get in the way of letting people know that I care about them and they're important to me, and the relationship's important to me. And I wish I would have learned that earlier.
So, we've talked a lot about your history in the sport and being involved in sport and how important sports are here in the state of Utah. Yeah. But this is kind of the big question that we're trying to discuss with people, because we all know that being from Utah kind of has its, we got a bit of a chip on our shoulder.
Yeah, we do.
We kind of have that underdog mentality. Doesn't matter. We're going to figure out a way to get something done, right? We're going to figure out a way to win an NBA championship, even though we're a small market team, that kind of thing, right? But to you, and in your time and your experience, what does it mean to you to be Utah built? To have that pride of being from the state, but with an organization that, when people think of Utah, they think of the Jazz.
Yeah,
they're just inseparably connected, right? So I mean, what does it mean to you to be a part of an organization that represents so much of this community in the state? But within that, that's something that we're really trying to help people understand and define is, what does it mean to be Utah built?
Yeah, I really hope I can express it in words. I'm not sure I can, but it literally means everything to me because, listen, I've had the opportunity to travel to every NBA city and travel to other cities, throughout the country and even throughout the world a little bit, and like every time I come back to Utah, I'm just like, this is who I am, and this is who I'm proud to be because, I think, you just, it's probably twofold. One is like, this is just a special place to live, getting around, transportation, the mountains, the red rocks, the water, lakes, the skiing, whatever. It's just, I just can't think of a better place to live. But I think it just goes deeper than that. I think it just goes back to, I really believe, I talked about earlier, like, and I know it sounds weird when I say I wanted to be great. Like, once again, it wasn't for, praise or whatever. It's just, I think it's in a little bit in our Utah DNA that we just want to do things right, and we want to be really, really good at it, for the right reasons. For the I think our motivations are to do it for the right reasons because, it benefits others. It makes life better for others. It makes this place a better place for people and that live here or they're moving here or what you mentioned you came back to Utah and weren't raised here. And I just like, when people come to Utah, it's just, this is a special place and the people are special. And I think we try to do things the right way for the right reasons. And I just don't think you find that everywhere.
I think that's so true. Just, I pretty much grew up here. I moved here when I was 7. But, whether you're an adopted son or daughter, you've moved here or you've been kind of born and bred like I have, there's something about that uniqueness of growing up here in the state of Utah and that mentality that, we try to do it right, like you said.
Yeah.
And that's what's, I think is so special about what the Jazz are trying to do and what you guys are doing as an organization is you guys are trying to do it right. You're not cutting any corners. You seem to be putting all the right things in place. So, we appreciate you taking some time, and we wanted to give you this Utah hat.
I'm a hat guy. I love my hats.
You can wear that with pride.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Part of the Utah Built family forever now.
Yeah, I love it. It's a good looking hat, and I'm always wearing a hat out of the office.
Well, just looking like at the reset of the beautiful backdrop that we have here, that this is the first time anybody's seen this in any of your media. Just to your point of what it means to be Utah Built for this organization, to honor the past, to perform in the present, and to project to the future.
Well, it goes back to Larry Miller, and he had the vision that when this team was struggling here in the early years, and he could have sold it for he didn't own it at the time, but actually went out and raised the money to keep it in Utah in the first place, and then had opportunities to sell it. And his commitment to Utah, if the Jazz would have left Utah, we weren't getting a team back. It wasn't going to happen. People have said, and I think it's true, if the Jazz aren't here, we may not get the Olympics. You don't have the Delta Center, which was very important for getting the Olympics, and and it just starts there, and then it carried on with Gail Miller and her leadership, and I will tell you that Ryan Smith has that same vision of what we mean. I mentioned the Olympics. We plan on, and have already talked, we'll be an Olympic venue for the next time the Olympics roll in, and this organization from Ryan Smith on down, we're committed to being I was going to say positive influence, but I'm going to say a positive force for good for the state of Utah and the people that live here.
Absolutely love that statement, and what a great way to end this beautiful conversation.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Jim Olson, thank you so much for your time, for being part of the Utah Built podcast,
My
for being
pleasure.
part of this family, honoring and celebrating the people, personalities, businesses, and brands that are uniquely Utah Built. Follow us on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, and more. Download us wherever you get your podcasts, and stay tuned for more from Utah Built. On behalf of our entire production team, for Jim, for Kimball Kjar, I'm Jared Banks. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next time on Utah Built.